Don't forget to like and share this broadcast with your friends and family on Facebook Live as well as on YouTube. Let all of your friends and family know to subscribe so that you know when the Center of Hope is going live.
God bless you and welcome to Real Talk. If it's Monday night at 9 p.m., it's time for Real Talk. I'm your co-host tonight, Bishop Mitchell G. Taylor, and I want to welcome all the Real Talkers that are joining us on tonight. You know the routine. Hit the share button, tag as many people as you can, and let them know that Real Talk is on the air. And we're excited about what we are going to get into on this evening. Hit the comment section, and use the likes and the hearts to amplify your expressions on this evening. Use the comment section to add to the dialogue and to contribute to the conversation. and let's have a great night tonight. I believe that we have embarked upon some rich and relevant dialogue on this evening. Over the last few weeks, we've really, I think, tapped into something very, very special. And I'm really, really proud and honored to be able to open the Real Talk platform and open the Real Talkers up on tonight to one of the most important discussions that we could ever have. And that's the discussion of bridging the generations, making sure that there's continuity, making sure that there's a conversation that keeps the faith and the foundation of the faith stable, but also transferable, so that there's not a competing, but a completing, and a succession that's already been thought through, a shared language, all of those things that are needed for us to make sure that the next is equipped in the now. And I think that as leaders, as senior leaders, we have a very grave responsibility to make sure that we are doing our part to prepare the next generations and to make our contribution, so that folks don't say, well, what were those guys doing back then when the generations were crying out for direction, crying out for dialogue? And, you know, I heard a young pastor say a couple of days ago, and he said last week, matter of fact, he said, our generation is not looking for a seat at the table. He said, we're looking for a voice. And that was a very interesting comment. And we're going to get into that on tonight. So I need you to hit the share button. Let folks know that we're on the air on tonight. And I want to welcome all the Real Talkers real quick on tonight. Melinda, bless you on tonight. Melinda, Claudette Simmons, put the city and state that you're from tonight. I'd like to acknowledge you. Wilhelmina, bless you. Justina, Mother Newland, Mother Shay, all the way from up top, New England. Nicholas, bless you. Barbara Smith Taylor, bless you. Ernest Lee Spellman, bless you. Sharon Moore, bless you. And happy birthday to your husband, Brother Dion. Bless you, Brother Dion. Happy birthday. And happy birthday to Deacon Hollis Jackson. Come on, give Deacon Hollis Jackson a big birthday greeting on tonight. Happy birthday to my sister, Rochelle Annette Taylor. I'll never tell your age, Shelly. I won't do that. Happy birthday to you, September 9th. And then on September 10th, yesterday, Bishop Jeffrey Lamont White, Greater Temple of Praise, was his birthday on September the 10th. All right. Juanita Wins, bless you. Reese, bless you. Clarence, bless you. Brendan Bryant from North Carolina. Barbara Waring, hey, Barbara. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Kathleen Nathan, bless you. Clarence Bias, bless you. Claudette Simmons from Rayford, North Carolina. All right. Phoebe, bless you. Anna, bless you. Corinne, bless you. All right. They're coming in on tonight. Well, listen, we have an exciting dialogue prepared for you on this evening, and I want you to get ready. I want to prepare to bring our guest on tonight. Bishop Page is coming on in just a few minutes. My co-host on tonight for the last 3+ years for the Real Talk show. And we're excited about tonight. So just be patient with us as he's coming in. But our guests are here on tonight. Elder Christina Barr. Please help me welcome once again, Elder Christina Barr on tonight. Bless you, Christina. Amen. You have to unmute yourself. And we have coming back on tonight, Overseer Dr. Kayshawn Joseph. Bless you, sir.
Bishop, how you doing, sir?
I am grateful and highly favored. Thank you so much for joining us. And Elder Christina, bless you.
Yes, God bless you. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you so much for joining us. And so, listen, tonight is going to be a tremendous night, and I want to thank both of you, young scholars, for being with us on tonight to share in this didactic conversation. And I want to jump right into it. Bishop Page is going to be joining us in just a few moments. Spud, Elder Brown, is out of the country on tonight and said that his internet was a little unstable to come on this evening, but asked if he can come on and join the dialogue on next week. And next week is going to be crazy because both of you know what's going to happen on next week. So next week is going to be really crazy. But tonight, we want to jump into the continuation of bridging, creating a bridge between the generations. And just to kind of recap a little bit before we get into the dialogue and just kind of ask you guys about your weekend and stuff. Matter of fact, let's do that. Before I do that, as is our custom, because once I start dropping these drinks here, I don't know how we're going to come back from it. Yeah. So, Christina, tell us about your weekend.
My weekend was pretty good. We had amazing fellowship at my church, Greenpoint Tabernacle of Praise in the Bronx. I was honored to actually give the word over this weekend. So
awesome.
I feel good. I'm excited about what God is doing for our ministry and the community as well.
Excellent. Well, that is awesome. I'm looking forward to sharing in your ministry and having you at the Center of Hope. Dr. Kayshawn Joseph, tell us about your weekend. I know you didn't get married yet. This wasn't the marriage weekend.
Not yet.
No. I dropped the pictures. I dropped the pictures last week, but for our engagement. But my wedding is next month, October 6th. But in the meantime,
I knew that. I was just jugging you.
I had to actually ministered on Sunday, and so I was blessed to minister at Church of Our Lord Jesus Christ Refuge. Church of Our Lord in Far Rockaway, and it was a youth service. And the reason why I brought that up is because I was blessed to see, one of the things I was praying about before going was really asking God to touch every generation. Sometimes in the youth services, the adults are blessed and the kids are like, you know what I'm saying? Like looking around like, what's going on in here? But we were blessed. Right. The Spirit of God really moved among every age group. I mean, they really experienced the power of God, and it was amazing to see it. So that to me touches my heart and lets me know that this is really real, and God is really moving and reviving his people. So it was good. It was really, really tremendous. Thank God.
Wow. Awesome. Well, we had a tremendous move of God this weekend, I must say. And listen, are you talking about at the highway, at Greater Highway?
Yes, I saw you were going forth, man of God. I saw that. That was powerful.
Really, I was out in the spirit most of the time because maybe they didn't show that on the camera, but the power of God hit the service. It hit the service so hard until people were being slayed in the spirit. And I was one of them. Wow. I was out. I was weeping.
Yes, sir.
And crying. I couldn't get control of myself. I could not get. I haven't felt that move of God like that in such a long time. I mean, I've been in services where I've led the move of God.
Yes. But to actually receive is
but to actually be under the influence that heavily.
Yeah.
That was wow. That was something. And I guess it hit me hard because we've been worshiping at the Greater Highway Deliverance Temple for the last 8 months.
Wow.
The second Saturday in February, we took a tremendous loss at the Center of Hope. We had a water pipe, a water main that broke, that destroyed the second floor and sanctuary of our church, executive offices and everything. And so it knocked us out for the last 8 months. We've been worshiping in Harlem.
Wow. Yeah, I did know that.
And yeah, and so we do our 9 a.m. virtually, and then we go to Harlem, and we've been worshiping together with Bishop Page Sr., and the Greater Highway Deliverance Temple. Big shout out to them for their hospitality over the last 8 months and their grace and graciousness to us. And so Sunday was our last service.
Wow.
And I got so overwhelmed in the spirit because for the last 8 months, I've felt safety. I was, we were at the Greater Highway Deliverance Temple, and under the, the auspices of Bishop Page Sr. and Mother Hazel Page, I just felt safe. I felt like although I was ministering, I felt like I was being ministered to these last 8 months, and it was just a whole nother. And so I guess the Spirit of the Lord began to deal with me, and I said, I don't want to go back.
Wow.
Now I've got a beautiful sanctuary in Long Island City that we've constructed, and I said, I don't want to go back. And when I got in the mic and started to tell people I don't want to go back, and I was trying to get myself together to say it, the second part of that was I didn't want to go back the same way I left.
Wow.
Because if we're going to go back the same way I left, then I don't want to go back. I can stay here, right here where we are. This is safe here. I'm being ministered to here. I'm able to minister freely here. I'm not dealing with the politics and the pressure of, you're not doing this. It's no problem. This place here is set. All I got to do is show up. And I felt, even now as I'm talking about it, I can feel the presence of God as I'm expressing my true and honest feelings about it.
Wow.
But if we're going to go back, we're going to have to go back with this anointing of change.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I honor you for two reasons with that, because first of all, I love hearing, it's like we're here with you, you know what I'm saying? We're serving you, and then you're serving Bishop Page and honoring him in that, in that way, and like just putting yourself in that place, as a father in the faith. That's amazing to see for us. And then secondly, like, I'm amazed. I don't know if Elder Barr could say the same. I'm amazed at hearing a bishop in the Lord's church talk about being overwhelmed with the presence of God and seeing, yourself overwhelmed with the presence of God, because sometimes people as they elevate, they get stoic and then they forget and they almost become numb. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess they handle it so much and forget, but it's a blessing to see that bishops in the Lord's church still have a sensitivity and awe to the presence of God like yourself and can reverence that. And I mean, that blesses me tremendously. I love that. And it's amazing to see. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, and you know what? And, God's spirit will not always strive with man. And I think that it is very important that we can appreciate the move of God. Yeah. And I'm so humbled right now that he moved and I was able to absorb the move, because so many times, you're right. We're so busy orchestrating the move and managing the move that oftentimes we as leaders can miss the move.
Truth.
And although everyone underneath us is filled and refilled and impacted, we have to be careful that we're not left out.
Yes.
And I realize that myself, because I've been left out, because I've been directing the orchestra, and then we just have to make sure. And that's why sometimes, and we're the biggest target, but we're not talking about that right now. But
that's another conversation for another day. It's really good.
That's another conversation. But listen, tonight we're continuing the dialogue on building a bridge between generations, and that bridge that will foster the continuity. Let's get right to it, to succession. Okay. And if we expect there to be a church tomorrow, we have to deal with the deposit that's being made to young leaders like yourself that are being prepared now.
Yeah.
And we can't allow apotheosis and bad leadership and those things that preclude that from hindering that succession. So this dialogue is important because we want to bring in the new without losing the integrity of the foundation of our faith.
Yeah.
And then I think last week, just to kind of recap just a little bit, last week we talked about shared language and language synergy. And Bishop Page talked about how important it is sometimes. And I used an analogy that set it up for a perfect, basic constructive critique. He said, Mitch, they don't know what a pinball machine is and the pinball machine tilting. That's a very dated analogy because, most young people in your generation may not know what that is unless they go to arcades and whatnot and say, oh, that's back from the day and da-da-da-da. And so shared language. And then Spud brought out understanding how to harmonize our experiences. And he brought out that what is needed between the two generations is grace. Mm-hmm. He brought out that we need grace for both sides and understanding grace for each other. Then we also talked about titles and how they have been exasperated and how they are actually losing their sacredness. And I think Elder Barr said, well, she didn't say this, but people are being appointed without the organic qualifications. That was just in the conversation. Then, Elder Barr, you said, all right, Elder Barr said, like time on the earth. People are being appointed without qualifications. And the analogy is, quote, like time on earth. Basic time on earth. Like you can't be here 20 years and you just haven't had enough time to gain that experience to really take on those sacred titles in one sense. Those are outliers and just not it's the exception and not the norm. And so, and then I like how you put this out. We have bishops, then we have big bishops, then you said we have super big bishops, and it just feels like it's just out of control. And then, Elder Barr, you suggested that we talk about our minstrels, our musicians, our Levites, the importance and relevance to our churches and how that's being navigated between the two. And we thought about, it'd be a great dialogue for us to kind of jump into. So it's just some of the things that, we kind of broached on last week. And so I don't know where you guys, there's a plethora of things that we can dive into on this evening. And so Elder Barr, I don't know what I'm going to defer to you as being our woman of God guest on this evening. And so I'm going to defer to you going first on this evening and ask where you'd like to pick up that dialogue.
Which angle, about the bishopric, or are we just picking?
Well, so we had a few that we were talking about. So we was talking about your particular thing was, figuring out where we're going with leadership. And you were asking, it's confusing time, but you also cited that the life is not necessarily matching the title.
Yeah.
And I think there's an expectation that's on the table as it relates to that. And in my thought and in my assessment of it, I never want to be a part of that band of people that say you're not ready, or I'm trying to hold you back, or keep you from matriculating. And so I'm always careful to balance that advice and that assessment with that bias in mind. Mm-hmm. So if you want to start there, we can kind of start there.
Yes. So one thing that I've noticed about being a young person in ministry and in leadership is that there aren't as many checks and balances as we need. So some people are being elevated without a level of accountability as to the expectation of moral character, of what's expected of a person when they are in front of a congregation leading as an elder, a pastor, a bishop. And the church, we need these people and we need the positions in order to continue the work, in order to keep things running smoothly. We need order and decency and order in operations. But when everyone gets elevated and when everyone is at the same status, essentially, like within the episcopacy, like it becomes no one can check me because now I'm a bishop. And we should never ever be above reproach, but sometimes the mentality or the personalities that we ordain and consecrate, they haven't had a chance to be checked. And this is what I meant when I said about time on earth. When you are growing up and going through the ranks, you will have opportunities to be checked, to be humbled, to learn what it is to develop that sort of character. But as everyone is ascending together, it leaves the people on the bottom looking upwards for examples, but they can't find many righteous examples. We find people that are very well dressed, but righteousness and holiness are kind of pushed to the side when we see, different things that are coming out in the media in regards to people in high positions.
Yeah.
It becomes a difficult space to navigate because lay members still need an example to look up to, because they can't nobody can do it on their own. And that's also, Bishop, like, why we honor you for giving honor to Bishop Page and just the Spirit of God, because it shows a level of humility, reverence, accountability, and just still being attached and not spiritually or emotionally detached from the experience.
I want to jump into that if I may. Something that-
I think you're having a connection problem, overseer.
Oh, okay.
He'll probably have to come back in. But as he's coming back in, you said something interesting, and I want to just be sure that the real talkers understand the context of what you're saying. And you're saying basically that we have leadership that's matriculating much quicker than they're being prepared. And you're right. And because of that, you feel like the examples are not being embedded properly. Is that a quick and dirty assessment of it?
Yes.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what is it what about that bothers you the most, or what do you think when I say bothers you, but maybe not bothers you, but what do you think that we need to do, or what is it that we should address as it relates to that? Because see, from my perspective, your generation might say, well, it's just too much to overcome to satisfy, what they think are the academic responsibilities to matriculate.
So, one thing that does concern me, as you said, is the amount of preparation that is being put into the matriculation of these roles. One solution, now, I don't think it's a simple solution, because this problem has been emerging for a few years now. But one solution, I would say, is humility and an adjustment or an assessment of self. We had discussed last week about this selfish kind of mentality that us millennials and Gen Zers, Gen X, sometimes possess, this me, myself, and I. And we are often easily offended because we are worried about our feelings 100% of the time. I think we have to be willing to adjust our mentality so that we are able to listen to correction without taking it personally 100% of the time. A lot of times when we are in conversation, we are listening to respond and often pretty combative. And that is due to, being oppressed and being silenced. But you cannot let the past experiences determine how you will interact with every level of leadership and every time you are given correction and direction.
Yes.
Now, overseer, you were trying to make a point earlier before you.
Yes, the devil didn't want me to say it. No, it is. It's raining up here, so I think that was kind of messing with it. But what I was going to say is that what people often forget is that the bishopric is more about character than it is competence. And when I say that, any really bishop, overseer, elder, the biblical qualifications of 1 Timothy 3, they all deal with character. There's only one thing that deals with like skill set and is apt to teach. You know what I'm saying? But everything else is about how you treat your family, how you treat your loved ones, how you treat the saints, are you hospitable? You have good rapport. Do you have integrity? Do you have character? And so a lot of times I think the problem is that what we're seeing with the bishopric and with all leadership positions is a lot of times it's based on how well they, how much you know. And it's good that you know these things, your skills. But a lot of times, really biblically speaking, it's supposed to be about the character that you have. And I think we're seeing a cheapening of that office because we have people that are stepping into it that are competent, meaning they know the vestments, the robes, the protocol, all the stuff, but they don't have the character to really, honor that office. And it's not that, that you don't know the stuff, you know the stuff, but you don't have the character needed to bring honor to that office. And so I think that's kind of what's cheapening it and messing with our the quality of the episcopacy and of pastorate and all higher leadership levels. It's all about character.
Right. And so I think that a lot of times we want to see matriculation, we want to experience spiritual matriculation, we want to go to those next levels, but you have to be prepared. I never forget when I was excited to tell my dad that I heard God say to me, "I'm calling you to preach." And I remember asking him sometime before that. I said, "How do you know when you're ready to preach?" He said, "Don't worry, the Lord will let you know." And I said, "Wow." So I went back, and several months had went by, and I felt the leading of the Lord and said, "I'm calling you to preach." And I knew it was the Lord. I knew it was the Lord, almost like Samuel. And I went to him. I said, "Dad, the Lord, it's called me to preach." And he was in his office and he had his head down. He was writing something or reading something. He didn't lift his head up. He said, then finally, I said, "Dad," I said, "did you hear me?" I said, "The Lord called me to preach." And he finally sat back and said, "Well, the first call is preparation."
Mm-hmm.
That's what? The first call is preparation. And I think that everything, and one thing is true, and he told me this: God can use anybody, but he can use a sharp tool better than he can use a dull tool. Absolutely. And so that's important. So I think that everything we're talking about now as it relates to position, especially when you're talking about the highest episcopal office in the church, the office of the bishop, there has to be, when you become a bishop, you become a doctor in the church. True. And if you don't have, and you know what, and you're right, overseer, in Timothy, you're right. Most of the characteristics of the bishop are not gifting. It's not gifting, it's character. And that's what we're lacking the most of. We substitute character with grace. Mm-hmm. And we use words like weakness and don't judge me. And more grace. I hear about this a lot now. More grace. Hyper grace. Extended grace. I get it. By grace you are saved through faith. It is a gift of God, lest any man should boast. But we shouldn't frustrate the grace of God.
That's right. That's right.
So I mean, yeah. So I mean, I think that's something that you guys are going to have to think about and deal with in your assessments of your own peers, because these are things that are germane to where you guys are, because ultimately, you guys will grow and mature and develop into those next tier leaders. But what I'm very encouraged because of you guys are academicians. You guys are pursuing knowledge. You're hungry. You're thirsty, and that gives me a lot of confidence that the church, is heading in the right direction, in the right hands. But let's push another topic on tonight. And I think that we kind of hit this a little bit on last week, and I just want to hit it again on tonight because Elder Barr, she was very passionate about this topic and about musicians and about the relationship between musicians today and the church. I think we hit a little bit, when we started talking about overseer. Bishop Page said, "Look, I'm still trying to get over the hats in the pulpit and what have you, and so on and so forth." It just kind of, I think, opened up the dialogue with, deference, reverence, personal preference, things of that nature, and I know that Elder Barr, you are, you're a professional praise leader, singer, both secular and in church, and I think you understand that dynamic. You brought it up. What was on your heart when you thought about that, when you inserted that into the dialogue?
So last week, Bishop Page talked about musicians wearing hats in the pulpit. Bishop Taylor, was it you that mentioned Cracky with the saggy pants?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I did.
Yes, and so that made me think of how sometimes musicians can feel a sense of entitlement when they know that they are needed in order to help services flow the way that they do. And I am a singer, and actually grew up playing the drums in my church as well. So so I understand, a little bit of the business side about being compensated for your time and for your gift and for what you are contributing to the space. But the other auxiliaries and the other areas of the church that are not compensated, they are expected to operate at a certain level of excellence and professionalism without a paycheck. We expect that our ushers and greeters are kind and stern and informative and welcoming without a paycheck. We expect that anyone who has a role will fulfill it to the best of their ability because the service is unto the Lord. Now, when we add money and compensation to the conversation, it becomes a job. And some people are not good on secular jobs. Some people don't know how to show up on time to work. Some people don't follow dress code at their places of work. And so when that translates into the church space as the sanctuary being a job or workplace for some, it truly reveals, I would say it reveals the heart of the worker, because there are still musicians to this day who will dress up, who will put on a suit, who will reverence and take out time to prepare themselves. And that's not to say that they're not presentable if they have on jeans, but you can tell when someone has prepared themselves. And that's truly what I last week as well, when I mentioned consecration and setting yourself apart, you can tell when a person has set themselves apart for service unto the Lord.
And you can, but let's go back. I want to press that point because I thought you was going to go there. You talked about the other ministries in the church, ushers and what those expectations are. And it's funny you said that because we just had a meeting about this Sunday, and we're restructuring our greeters, our ushers, and whatnot, and we're putting, a real emphasis on training and attitude and sensitivity and whatnot. And the reality is, you need your best people meeting people that are coming into your doors for the very first time, because people will determine in the first 30 seconds or 90 seconds whether they're coming back to your church again. Mm-hmm. In the first 90 seconds, they're going to determine whether they're coming back to your church again. And usually that first touch is the usher or the greeter. And so you need that person. But you're right. There was never a thought that you have to pay a greeter. But there is a thought that you have to pay a musician. And I wanted you to, because there are many examples of that. So you have missionaries, evangelists, ministers, elders, deacons, trustees. If, the church was not set up in that way. So I wanted to push you in that because it sounded like you was moving in that direction.
Okay. So in that vein, I think that the pandemic has really pushed the need for a professional sound. And so many pastors and senior leaders are looking to have that sound. As you mentioned, people will assess within the first minute or so whether or not they're coming back to a church. And part of that is the greeters, the visual aesthetics of how the church looks, and the sound, the music, and the singers that they hear when they walk into the doors. And so the pandemic forced most ministries to fully operate online, and it kind of fostered a bit of competition. It shouldn't have, but it did bring a bit of a spirit of competition amongst churches to see, well, who has this music, who has that music. I understand that some churches were not equipped to stream, and so what stream sounds this way, what stream sounds that way. Many sound engineers are compensated the same way a musician or a singer is compensated, because we know that we need that sound, or we think we need the sound, to secure the audience's attention and to really retain new members and guests that are in the service. I don't 100% agree with it. And this is coming from someone who is often paid to sing, so I know it may sound like a little contradictory, but there needs to be, I think there needs to be a level of just expectation of what comes with the role. If you can sing, and you can sing naturally, you can wake up in the morning and just sing, then that is a gift that you are able to offer unto the Lord. If you can play, that is a gift that you can offer unto the Lord. Some people, as you mentioned about the greeters, some people have been taught traditionally what it means to be an usher, and they have not learned what it means to be kind and welcoming and inviting. And so you have to find your area.
Is there, I guess in our culture, there must be a difference between being an usher and being kind and inviting.
I would say growing up in the church, the ushers are pretty stern, spit the gum out, stop that talking, and so you had like a level of almost fear, but it was reverence for the ushers because you understood that they took the job seriously of maintaining order in the space, and I think they were gifted to do that. I don't want to use the term church hurt, because I know that just gets thrown around. But I have heard millennials and Gen Zers say that they stopped going to churches because the usher was rude. And
wow.
I've heard people say they don't even visit back when we had real ushers, that they didn't visit certain churches because they didn't like the people who were at the door. So I do think there is a slight disconnect there, because how people are greeted matters, because they really take it to heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Overseer Kayshawn, now your internet has I think the Storm Lee has come to your area early.
Yeah, there's something going on here. I didn't have this problem before. I got it now.
But you were making the point about the character versus the character versus the aptitude
Yeah,
of those spiritual matriculations
yeah,
in the or to the episcopacy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and to that, I mean, I kind of made said what what I need to say about
Right.
that. I think that, and I'm not saying that to necessarily negate competency. You have to, you should know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? You do need to be able to teach, and I think that goes along with everything that we're discussing. There should always be, the Bible talks about being a good and faithful servant, so having both
Mm.
competency and character in the same space. And so yeah, I completely agree with that. And to the point that she's making, I think that the church has become very. I'm trying to figure out, like, where does everybody think we're getting this money from? Like, where
Yeah.
it's very where everybody has their hand out and the giving is not much better. The giving is not, statistically speaking, the giving is not better now than it is before. And like, comparatively to the generations, I mean, there were generations at one point, like my grandparents and great grandparents, but they would mortgage their house for the church. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. You're right.
I've never seen you. You mortgage your house, Christina. You know what I'm saying?
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen that at all. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And
It was in it was definitely in my generation. Definitely in my generation. And I can talk more about that. I see Barbara saying talk, sir, because she knows.
It's people they don't, you know what I'm saying? They don't really get. And so it's like, and I think that's the issue that I struggle with, is like everybody has high expectations, but it's like the giving is not great. And so where do y'all think this money is coming from? And then it makes us resort to gimmicks and weird stuff in church and all kind of strange things to get money so we can pay for the singers, the band. And the offering time is like a hostage situation sometimes, because you have to make, you got to make the money. People up there prophet lying and carrying on to pay everybody. Everybody has their hand out, but people are not giving. And so it's like, it's a really, like, it's not good. Like, the amount of people that usually sow and tithe in a church to now, statistically speaking, especially in a modern church, is not that great. Unless you're like even in major churches like mega churches, they're mostly carried by a smaller percentage of people that attend the church. It's never I don't know of any 100% tithing church unless it's very small. You know what I mean? I don't know of that. So it's like,
it's funny you said that, because when I first started pastoring in Astoria, the Astoria Outreach Ministries, I used to brag to my dad. I used to come back home Sunday night from my little outreach ministries in Astoria, the Astoria Outreach Ministries, and we had about 20 adult members and 60 kids, and we had a 100% tithing church. And I told my dad, I used to come home at night and said, Dad, I don't know what we're going to do with your church, but I got a 100% tithing church. And I used to brag about that. And every time we got another member, we had 21 members. That 21st member was a tither. And we had 22 members. That 22 member was a tither. But somewhere between the 20 and when we made that leap to the 3-digit figures, those numbers didn't change much. It was that same nucleus of people that seemed to carry, the growing. And I'm not sure if, now I know that, there was growth and what have you. And we know the Pew statistics say that 20% of most congregations are, carrying, 100% of the expense of those congregations. And you're right. It's very few and far between when those numbers are different. I don't know if you've seen any research. If Bishop Page was here, he probably could lend some more color on that, because he did a paper on mega churches. He did a research paper on mega churches and what have you. But has that dynamic changed much? It seems like you seem to cite that it's not.
It's the same. It's the same premise. I mean, the tithing is even worse. And it's almost like the risk of preaching grace, because now, do I want to go down this doctrinal path today? Okay, we'll do this. I'll do the controversy for Bishop Page. I'll do it for him. So really, because, and I understand it, and I believe it, and I teach it. But once people realize that you're not going to hell if you don't tithe, and God's not going to come and get you and take your kids and, and burn your house down, and once you understood that, it made everybody relaxed. I think, a lot of times for a long time, I think tithing was fueled a lot of times by I think in part by fear, but also duty. There was duty, but there was also a lot of fear. And so the mix of those both kept a higher tithing rate. Now, when the risk of liberty, the risk of preaching grace is that a lot of times, or the risk of preaching it, is that people, once they know they're free, they just take it. They can.
Well, in order for one to be free, they had to first be bound, right? But think about grace and liberty from this perspective, that the tithe was just a base. It was just a starting point, right? And so technically, a tithe is really scratching the surface
Exactly.
in our relational giving to God.
Absolutely.
So if I'm bringing a tithe and adding an offering, that for me, under the context of grace, is the minimal that I'll do, because I have context for it in the Older Testament.
Yes.
Not that I'm going to hell because of that older covenant, but I have context for my new covenant relationship under grace.
Yes. And people, I'm sorry, Elder Christine.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say, I think, and I remember I was telling a church one time, and they were saying, we got to do it. That's not what they did. And that's not New Testament, not New Testament. I said, you don't want to give like they did in the book of Acts, because in the book of Acts, they didn't give 10%. They gave it all. You gave all.
And not only that, all men had things common.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. That was the most socialistic society that you could ever see.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And because of our common denominator, we really believed what we preach back then. So you're right. The Ananias Sapphira story is a great example, of that. Could we live under that compulsion? I mean, when you, and the compulsion is that when you live under what Jesus left us to live under, love the Lord your God, all your heart, your mind, and love your neighbor as you love if you fulfill that, you fulfill the law and the commandments. And that's the biggest challenge that we have.
Now, one thing that I wanted to add, and it's interesting because last night I was actually up kind of like researching tithing for some reason. And one thing that you mentioned as kind of like a socialist society is that the tithes were used for the upkeep of the temple, for the priests, and I also read in a source that it was for the landless poor. And so if you think about the Jewish community today, culturally, especially like the Hasidic Jews, they really do take care of their own. And so the tithe, when we're instructed in Malachi 3 to bring the tithes into the storehouse, that there would be meat in the house, it wasn't just so that the temple could be beautiful, but that the needs of the society would be met because of how much the church or the temple as an institution meant to the thriving of the community group. And so it made me think, and I didn't really get to explore this thought too much, but it made me think of the church's relevance today and possibly how young millennials and new age, New Testament thinkers who are trying to, get rid of tithe, maybe they're questioning how much the church actually gives to them.
Oh, but that's a great point, because that brings me to my next point. The church's giving is down, but I feel like the church's give out and give back is like exponential at this point. I have seen
really?
The giveaways. There are churches that gave away cars. I've seen people paying bills, homes for people that come in, giving away TVs for people to visit the church, and gas giveaways. And I mean, I personally know of my friends, especially in the South as well. They do a lot of that. They go and take over the gas station and give back to the community and give free gas. And they do all of that, right? So there are churches that are giving. I mean, we're giving. and they're giving back to the community. We're giving to different ways, and there are also churches that are giving for the sake of trying to get people to come to church. If you ever seen with people like the raffles, the giveaways, stuff like that, it's some stuff that's just outrageous. I'm like, I gotta try to entice you with a car to get you to get saved, and like, what, you know what I'm saying? Like, the give out is crazy, but it's like, where do y'all expect us to get this money from? And again, like, we're giving, you know what I'm saying? The churches, you can't say that the churches don't give. You can't say the church doesn't help people. You can't say that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can guarantee, I can point at least 10 right now, modern churches that are giving and giving back. There was a video that went viral, a church that had a pastor raise an offering to everybody come and give. They raised up the offering for that Sunday, and they told people that had bills and stuff to come and take whatever it is you need off the altar. You know what I'm saying? Like, this stuff happens, but it's like, what do y'all think this money is coming from? So like, who's giving is my question. Who is giving? Who is, you know what I'm saying? The church is giving away, but who's giving? That's my question.
Well, I mean, who's giving is the 20% of the congregation that the Pew polls and the Barna, and I don't like to always quote Barna, but they got it right on this part, that, 20% of congregations are supporting 100% of the expenses. So the money is coming from you and me. And now if your church has an entrepreneurial anointing, and you have entrepreneurs, and then your church itself is entrepreneurial enough to create other streams of revenue, for the church or for the ministry, then there's opportunities there. Remember, historically the church, back in the day, the preacher was everything. He knew how to buy a car, he knew how to buy a house, he was Mr. Everything. You didn't get married. What do you think? You didn't buy a car. What do you think? I mean, if the pastor today had to go with every member to go buy a car, are you kidding me? But the point is, years ago, and that comes out of being born out of slavery, out of the struggle, out of not having access to reading material and whatnot. And so we were at a gross disadvantage. And most times the preacher was the most educated person in the village. Yeah. So, I mean, the church has always been the center of communities. And I think that one thing I can say about the church, especially in our cultural context, is this, that you cannot have a true church and separate it from social justice.
Absolutely.
And I think in the book of Isaiah, and I know we only have a couple more minutes, but in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, it says, "The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me." And I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. "Because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and freedom to prisoners, and to proclaim favorable years of the Lord." So you can't be involved. Jesus clearly gave us the motif. You can't be involved in preaching the good news without dealing with the afflicted, the brokenhearted, those that are oppressed, and those are the things that we are responsible to do. And I think that's getting lost in translation as well. And when he said, if we want to use Malachi and use that as an example of bringing and giving resource so that the house can have resource, he said, bring your tithe into the storehouse, not the poorhouse. The storehouse was never poor.
That is Bishop. That is good. That is good.
Yeah. Bring it into the storehouse, not the poorhouse, that there might be meat in my house, resources. The model is the church is the central resource. And we can go into this. We're not going to go into this now, but it's 10 o'clock. And I think that, man, we didn't even really touch a lot of these things that we wanted to talk about. But Elder Barr, did you want to add something to this? And there's a couple of things. Let me just pull this out. We wanted to talk about a little bit about in the music department, talk about kind of this CCM
Okay.
music genre and whatnot. We didn't get to that. I know you're ready for that. I wanted to, and Bishop Page really wanted to go here, and I know Kayshawn brought this back to my memory. How do we balance biblical womanhood against secular feminism? What were the traditional teachings in the past that gave the church a misogynistic reputation? And I know you did some considerable amount of study on that, and I'd love to get your perspective on that next week when we come back. And then where do you think the individualism and loss of community comes from in our generation? That is exactly what we just started kind of breaking out just now. And then this is kind of an outlier, but why do we see more of the prophetic today than any other gift? And so just so the real talkers have some thought about what we're going to be coming back with on next week. Spud will be back with us on next week. Bishop Page will be back with us on next week. Now, unless his class is going to be every Monday night till 10 o'clock. And then, which I doubt, then we have to move Real Talk to 10 o'clock. But anyway, and then we'll have, I think we may have a guest musician for the musician segment for next week, if I'm not mistaken. And I saw Pastor Franco Harris, who was on. He had made a comment, and I wanted to go back to that comment. Yes. But Antoine is plays for Pastor Franco Harris on Sundays, and so I think we were trying to get him to come and join. That was the one we were trying to get, right? To join us? Yeah. So, but we'll get a representative on next week. It'll be great. Final remarks, Overseer Christina.
Yes. I was just going to say my point in bringing all that up is to say that I'm concerned generationally that at the rate that we're going, once our fathers and mothers and uncles and aunties are gone and can no longer do, the church won't be able to sustain financially if we don't step our giving up. And so my prayer is that we would go from becoming just being consumers to being contributors to the Lord's church, and that we begin to tithe and to give and to increase that and to change that. Otherwise, the church will not sustain, and we won't be able to sustain the work of the ministry. So that's just my heart, and I pray that we are able to do that and to change in that way.
Amen.
Amen. I agree with you. I think a level of transparency about church finances, especially like in smaller assemblies, it's needed because members come in and we consume and we just sit down and enjoy the lights, enjoy the air, enjoy the heat, enjoy the water, enjoy the everything that takes money to go to run. And I think also a level of education and understanding about biblical principle and practical application of how God is expecting certain things from us, and how if we do those things, we can sustain the work that He has given us.
That's perfect. That is perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, as we're ending up on tonight, the ways to give are on the screen, and I'd like to encourage all the real talkers on tonight, as we have been doing our level best to bring the best possible programming to you each and every Monday night at 9 p.m. I am asking you, I want to thank you. First of all, Pastor Harris said, giving in the church is always questioned and challenged. Nevertheless, we don't question where the money is going to our secular events. Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, the world supports its own. You're right, Pastor. You're right. Speaking of which, we had a tremendous time at Pastor Franco Harris's church a couple of weeks ago. The power of God hit that place. I wanted to come back to the following Sunday, but I couldn't.
My God.
And shameless plug, on Wednesday night, I will be at the New Jerusalem Worship Center for their revival, their week of revival starting on Wednesday. Hey, my sister is on, Alnisa, bless you, Alnisa, from New Jersey, Deborah Chapman. I'll be at the New Jerusalem Worship Center Wednesday night, 7:30. My night is Wednesday night for the revival. I think I'm kicking off the revival. So I'm looking for all of my South Jamaica folks to meet me at Smith Street, right across from Rochdale Village in Jamaica, Queens on Wednesday night. All right. The ways to give are on the screen. I need tonight 40 people tonight to sow a seed of $20. And as you do that, just put done in the comment section. Again, Real Talk is not a money platform. Real Talk is about conversation and dialogue, but it takes money. It takes money to run the program. It takes money for the engineers. It takes money for the platform. It takes money for all these different things. And so I'd ask that you would sow a seed tonight, give tonight, as you have been proportionally blessed in this program by sowing. And I need 40 of my partners, Real Talk partners. Thank you, Mother Newland. That's 1. Thank you, Pastor Harris. That's 2. I need 38 more Real Talk partners to put done in the comment section and sow that seed either to the Cash App or to the Zelle, so that God will be glorified and we will be able to meet all of our impending expenses. Thank you, Elder Christina Barr. Thank you, Overseer Keyshawn Joseph. And we will see you guys on next week, and looking forward to the dialogue. All right. So Real Talkers tonight has been another exciting night. You can put this one in the books. My God, I am so excited about these young men and women of God. Thank you, Trina, for your seed. Thank you, Sharon, for your seed. Thank you, Christina, for your seed. Thank you, Pastor Hassan, for your seed on tonight. I need another 40 people? So I need another 30 people on tonight to sow that seed of $20 on tonight as we are undergirding. Thank you, Phoebe, as we are undergirding the platform on tonight. Now, don't forget, on Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., there it is, Wednesday morning word, 6 a.m. You don't want to miss it. Join us. 1 hour of spiritual power. It'll bless your life. And then don't forget, meet me at the New Jerusalem Worship Center. I don't know the address. It's Smith Street. The address is Smith Street. So don't forget to meet us Wednesday night on Smith Street at the New Jerusalem Worship Center. I'll be preaching there on Wednesday night. All right, listen, I'm excited. On Sunday, All Roads Lead at 9 a.m. Don't forget, we're on every Sunday, our virtual church at 9 a.m. And then All Roads Lead at 11 a.m. to the Center of Hope International for the reopening of our brand new, newly renovated sanctuary at 12-11 40th Avenue. Thank you, Pastor Hassan. New Jerusalem Worship Center, 12205 Smith Street. Thank you. 12205 Smith Street. Service begins at 7:30 p.m. sharp. Thank you, Sandra, for your seed on tonight. Thank you. Thank you for your seed on tonight. All right. Listen, I'm believing God for the rest of these seeds to come in. Even if you're watching after this has aired live, the same anointing that was on this replay on the live airing is on the replay. So thank you on tonight. Don't forget, meet us on next Monday night for Real Talk. We'll be back with another exciting edition of Bridging the Gap between the generations. Thank you. Walk with the King today and be a blessing.